I am Elena Duran and welcome to India. Our presentation focuses on India's pastel analysis, political, economical, social-cultural, technological, environmental, and legal factors as well as their SWOT analysis. India is officially known as the Republic of India with the city capital of New Delhi. India is the seventh largest country with an area of about 1.27 million square miles and is about one-third size of the US. It belongs to the continent of Asia and is bordered by countries like Bangladesh, China, Pakistan, and a few others. Throughout the years, India's population has kept growing, with its population being equivalent to 17.74% of the total world's population. India ranks second in the list of all countries by population. It is expected that India will become the world's most populous country by 2022. The largest age structure of India is between the ages of 25 to 54 years, and the lowest being 6% of the ages 65 and over. More than a million Indians are millionaires and yet live on less than $2 a day. It is estimated that 35% of India's population lives below the poverty line. Now looking at India's political section. India has a government type of democratic republic with a parliamentary system. The government system is composed of legislative, executive, and judicial branch. The legislative comprises the Lok Sabha, which is House of the People, and the Rajya Sabha, Council of the States. India has the longest handwritten constitution in the world, containing 44 articles, 12 schedules, and 94 amendments. Their parliament is a circular shape, which represents their continuity. India has been free for quite some time, just like the US. India has a score of 2.5, while the US is at 1. India became a free country thanks to the growth of civic organizations that were putting their effort to strengthen human rights and protection. India's political freedom is 77 out of 100 being the most free. Compared to the US, who has a strong political stability, India has been on the weaker side. Even though it is weaker, India has made progress in development in such a small amount of time due to the political stability, which has even brought them hope in India after a long economic slowdown. According to the Corruption Perception Index of Transparency, India ranks 79th out of 176 countries. Compared to the US, India is very corrupt. Corruption in India is due to the excessive regulation, complicated systems, their government with opaque bureaucracy, and the lack of transparent laws. Issues like poverty, education, and even cleaning continue to be issues of corruption in India. Many Indians even have to pay bribes to be able to get jobs in either public or private sectors. Now looking at the rule of law index compared to the US, India's index is very weak. We can see that since 2000 it has decreased, becoming weaker. Many elements of India's rule of law continue to be problematic, for example, the police or the courts. India has a weak performance in enforcing rule of law, and even the smallest change could have a dramatic impact in the rule of law.
Now let's talk about US and India's economic system. India has developed into an open market economy, whereas US economic system is mixed economy. Since 1991, India's economy has accelerated the country's growth just over 7% per year. India's diverse economy consists of traditional farming to a wide range of modern industries, whereas US economy comprises a large chunk of industries like manufacturing, petroleum, steel, and aerospace, etc. US economy is growing at just below 2% compared to India's 7% growth. As you can see, India's growth have been all the way from 4.82 to 8.48 in late 2009 to 7% in 2017. The reasons beside this growth is because of well-educated population and investment that have continued to strengthen this year. And also the low global energy prices, which has boosted the consumer spending, has played the part. As we look at US GDP growth rate, we see a slow plus negative growth in 2009. Reason being housing market crisis and recession in 2007. We still see upward trend from 2012 to 2015 as the economy recovers, and slight downward to 1.6 in 2017. Experts suggest that the reason for this dip may be the lower energy prices. India's GNI at PPP shows it more than tripled from the 2.59 trillion in 2000 to 7.9 trillion in 2016. This is because of new economic innovation and industrial growth in India. India's per capita GNI also shows a growth of 200% from $2,000 in year 2000 to 6.5 thousand in 2016. GNI per capita in the United States shows an increase of 60% from 2000 to 2016. However, as we compare the two countries' GNI per capita at PPP, the cost of living in India is well below the United States. Now let's talk about economic freedom. As you can see, Economic Freedom Index ranks India 143 with 52.6 points, which means in this society, individuals and businesses are mostly unfree to work, produce, consume, and invest in any way they please. Government also has restriction of labor, capital, and goods to move freely. Now let's talk about foreign direct investment. Net India's foreign direct investment inflows showed an upward movement, whereas outflows were down. At a time when global FDI fell, India improved its ranking to number 9, while the US remained the best foreign investment destination in 2016. Greenfield investment by foreign multinationals, especially in manufacturing industries such as electronics and motor vehicles in India, accounted for the spike in inward FDI. The outward FDI has shown a decreasing trend because of initiative by Indian government Make in India program. It also incentivized global investors to manufacture in India, causing the inward FDI spike. Now, Human Development Index. In India, developing education system and increasing gender equality played an important role that has increased Human Development Index over years. However, India ranks very low in comparison to the United States, which has a very high life expectancy at birth and high per capita income. This is partially because the GDP per capita is substantially low in India. Life expectancy has been steadily increasing, but because of the enormous population and lack of healthcare in rural India, HDI still ranks low compared to other developed economies.
Next, we are going to talk about the socio-culture of India. Many languages are spoken in India, but the largest spoken dialect is Hindi, with English being the subsidiary official language. It is impossible to know India without understanding its religious beliefs and practices, which have a large impact on the personal lives of Indians and influence public life on a daily basis. The largest religion practice in India is Hindi, with 81% and the other 19% being Muslims, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Jains. India is a diverse multi-ethnic country that is home to thousands of small ethnic and tribal groups. That complexity developed from a lengthy and involved process of migration and intermarriage. But the three main ethnic groups in India are Indo-Iranian, Dravidian, Mongolian, and other. When analyzing Hofstede's dimension of culture, we see that the United States' individualistic masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, and indulgence are higher than India's, but India's power distance and pragmatism figures are higher than the United States, meaning that India has an appreciation for hierarchy and top-down structure in society and organizations, as well as forgive a lack of punctuality, a change game plan based on changing reality, and a general comfort with discovering a fated path as one goes along rather than playing to an exact plan. When comparing the United States and India's Human Development Index, we can see that the United States' HDI is almost 1.5 times what India's is. India is put in the medium human development category, while the United States is in the very high human development category. India still lags behind most countries in terms of its education spending. At around 4% of GDP, India's spending on education is behind that of comparable economies. The world's average percentage of GDP spent on education is 4.7%.
Next, we will look at technology in India. Research and development expenditures as a percent of GDP is a key indicator of efforts by India's government and private sector to gain a competitive advantage in science and technology. Many Indian cities are homes to information and technology parks, including High Tech City, which hosts the largest office for Microsoft outside of the United States. Despite this, India's research and development expenditure as a percentage of GDP fell to 0.627% in 2015 and has hovered around 0.8% since 2005. India is aiming to improve its research and development percentage by encouraging the private sector to increase expenditures by offering incentives such as weighted tax breaks. Resident and non-resident patent applications have been steadily increasing in India over a 10-year span, growing from 24,382 in 2005 to 45,658 in 2015. Scientific and technical journal articles have also been increasing, growing from 33,090.1 in 2005 to 93,349.4 in 2015. The Global Innovation Index scores the innovation performance of 127 countries on 81 indicators, including infrastructure and education. The higher the score, the better. India's Global Innovation Index score has been in the 30s for the past 5 years, and they scored a 35.5 in 2017. Next, we will look at India's environment. The Environmental Performance Index ranks various countries' performance on high-priority environmental issues. India's overall EPI score has hovered around 30 since 2006, but increased to 53.58 in 2016. India's EPI ranking also improved to 141st in 2016 from 155th in 2015. India's numbers are improving, but they have many high-priority environmental issues, including land degradation, loss of biodiversity, management of water resources, and air pollution. Of these, India had the lowest environmental indicator score in air quality, scoring a 28.07. India has taken notice and has made efforts to control its air pollution. In December of 2016, India shut down a major coal-burning power plant in Delhi and launched odd-even driving day restrictions. They also created vehicle emissions compliance standards that they began implementing at the beginning of 2017.
Next, I will discuss the various property rights indexes concerning India. The IPRI overall for India has gradually increased over time, and as with the other charts, the same can be said. The same thing that starts this legal and political environment property rights graph explains the gradual increase in the others as well. India is currently fighting government corruption. For more than 200 years, India was a socialist command economy. It did not finally become independent until the 1950s, when it became what is now known as one of the fastest growing capitalist nations in the world. The first of its kind in Asia, in fact. It has struggled to adjust its laws and heavy corruption and incompatibilities left over from the previous government, which have provided numerous obstacles that have kept it from realizing higher degrees of freedom. The fact that India is one of the highest traffic points in the world for various illegal trades has not helped the government fight this corruption either. All of the charts do show that in the past few years, however, India has been wrangling this better as all forms of property rights have finally risen to the highest level that they have ever been. Lastly, I will discuss the SWOT analysis for India. Its change to a democratic government has led to many of India's new strengths forming, the most important being advances in telecommunication and technology. We interviewed Sunil Vidyala, a TA for the University of Texas at Tyler and an exchange student from India, about his home country, and he had this to say about it.
But now, because the internet infrastructure is strong, the telecommunications infrastructure is strong, what happens is that US companies or any companies have a much larger consumer base in India.
As far as opportunities are concerned, aside from various opportunities being created by new technology and economical practices, as bilateral communications with Pakistan have resumed after 4 full-scale wars in past years, diplomatic relations could finally heal, allowing India to grow in ways that war times don't properly cultivate. As stated before, by far the greatest weakness of India is regulation of its produce. India is the world's largest producer of illicit opium, and opium draws drug trafficking. It is also statistically one of the unhealthiest nations in the world, with high levels of STDs, bad life expectancies at birth, so on and so forth, possibly a side effect of both the long-term command government it had and the various wars it's taken part of. But with a potentially long-term peace on the horizon and fast-growing technologies, this could quickly change. Aside from illegal activities mentioned, the 2 major threats that loom on the horizon for India are an international dispute with China recently may have hurt relations with China worse than expected. The last major threat to India is ironically one of its greatest strengths. Its infrastructure is growing.
It used to be 20-30 years ago. A lot of the complaints that companies who invested there was that there was no 24-hour electricity. The internet infrastructure was not as strong.
But it's growing so fast that if something isn't formed correctly, India could be set back a long time, or even the economy could even collapse in trying to fix the problem.